Hello, everybody. I hope you have had a chance to get yourself a lovely coffee or tea. Today we are talking about something very topical. Something that really is changing the world as we know it, for everyone. And I think that using Chat GPT is not really a choice. It's something that you must do, for better or worse. Hello there, everybody. Welcome to Professor Rich English. And today we are going to talk about this stuff. Now, you might think, well, using Chat GPT, that's easy. I just ask it stuff and it will do stuff for me. Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. And what I've found is there are tricks to using it well, certainly as a teacher. So I began to think, how can we use ChatGPT as a language learner? I'm sure you all know what ChatGPT is. Have you been experimenting with it? Hello, Miss Archu. Great to see you. Is this your alt account? Miss Archu, not Dr. Archu now. Hello, Daisy Lee. Hello, Jessie. Hello, Nipa. Hello, Romelia. Hello, Laylo. Hello, Julia Hatar. How are you all doing? So are you familiar with ChatGPT? Have you used it? And how have you used it? Have you used ChatGPT as a language learner? And how have you used it as a language learner? I'm going to give you some excellent examples of how to use ChatGPT for anyone. Well, yeah, so Daisy instantly says for correcting grammar mistakes. And that's probably one of the things that comes to mind straight away, isn't it? Correcting grammar mistakes. I'm going to do the rather brave thing of sharing my browser window, potentially. Actually having some sort of internet issue at the moment, which is just wonderful. Okay, great. Yeah, so in this class, I am going to be sharing my browser window quite a bit, theoretically. And we are going to kind of look at what ChatGPT can do. So for people who don't know, ChatGPT is an AI chatbot using very complex language algorithms. So you can simply say stuff to it like, translate this into natural colloquial English, and then we could put a phrase like we could put some Spanish here like that and ask him to translate it. And he does a pretty good job of doing that. So I put in Spanish, ¿Qué pasa, hombre? ¿Qué tal todo? ¿Quieres venir a mi cumple este fin de semana? And ChatGPT says, what's up, man? How's everything going? Do you want to come to my party this weekend? So pretty good at translating, probably better at translating than Google Translate. But that's quite simple. And I want to have a look at some more complex ways of using ChatGPT. So, exercises for practice. What do I mean by that? Well, can someone there in the chat give me an example of some grammar that you learned recently and you need to practice. It can be conditionals, hypotheticals, whatever. Someone in chat, tell me an example of a grammar point or language point you learn in English and you find difficult and you want practice. Can anyone give me an example? Oh, by the way, here's the link in the chat for Julia. Put it on the spreadsheet as well. For anyone who's watching this as a VOD, not live. No sooner or rather than. No sooner had it happened. Rather than. I don't know what you mean, Anawat. Past and perfect tenses, says Wookie. So Wookie Frost says past and perfect tenses. All right, well, let's use that as an example first of all. So the thing that you will learn with ChatGPT is that you want to make your prompts specific, right? So you told me past and perfect tenses, and I want to make a prompt that's as specific as possible to get something useful from this. Just give me a moment. Oh, I thought I had a prompt ready for this, and actually I don't. Okay, that's fine. We'll write it now. So, can you provide... In fact, we don't need to say can you. Provide exercises for an English learner to practice past and perfect. Use a variety of interesting activities and exercises. Focus on the context of, let me think, past and perfect tenses. What's a useful way of talking about that? Let's say focus on the context of food and international travel. Okay, let's try that. They're a bit open, aren't they? So it's given me some kind of interesting classroom activities, but we really wanted student activities. So practice on their own with solutions to each question or exercise. Yes, and then we'll take that and put it here. Now that's much more, this is the kind of thing that I wanted. So you can see that it's just generated for me some kind of interesting activities here for practicing past and perfect tenses. And these are the kind of things that you could find in a grammar book or whatever. But the fact that this thing can accurately generate them in that way can make it really interesting. And, you know, also what you could do, if you don't like the ones that it generates, like maybe you think, food and travel, that's so boring. I don't want to do food and travel. So then we'll change it and we'll say, what are you interested in? Maybe you're interested in video games. Okay, then let's ask it to do that. Now we've got all this lovely stuff about Mario jumps over the Goomba. With the correct form of the past tense. Okay, Mario jumped over the Goomba. Luigi found the key to the secret level. Bowser stole the princess. It's really the ability to customize things that makes this so interesting. So that's one thing you can do. You can use it to generate practice activities, practice exercises. If there's some grammar point that you want to practice, now let's move on to vocabulary building. And I think this is where it becomes really powerful, the ability to build vocabulary using ChatGPT. And there's a number of things we can look at here. Useful phrases, morphemes, and word families. So thinking about useful phrases. Think about a situation, a context, that is a situation and a time when you need some phrases, some useful English phrases. The more specific your context is, the better. So we do want to be as specific as possible with our context. Being specific is really useful with Chat GPT. So anyone got a context that they want me to ask Chat GPT about? Is there some situation where you would like some useful phrases? I'll show you my prompt. So my prompt says, make 10 useful, semi-flexible lexical chunks, which would be very useful for X. And this is where we're going to put our situation. LK, I'll talk about that in a minute when I do questions at the end. I'll talk about your question. Getting a refund by ScoTrail. I don't know what ScoTrail is, but let's say asking for a refund. Is that like is it rail? Oh, ScotRail, from a rail company. Brilliant. So make 10 useful semi-flexible lexical chunks which would be very useful for asking for a refund from a rail company. I don't want specific examples or fixed phrases. I want colloquial and common language which can be used flexibly. Hasn't given me very flexible language, but we do have some nice language there. Could you help me with a refund for my train ticket? I'm afraid I need to ask for a refund on my ticket. I'd like to request a refund on my train fare, please. These are pretty good. We can also say, can you provide British English pronunciation for each? And then if you're into the phonemics, you can see that ChatGPT has done a pretty good job there. Could you help me with a refund for my train ticket? Pretty good. Now, I didn't quite like what he said because it wasn't that flexible. So one thing with ChatGPT, if you don't like his answer or her answer, just go to new chat and do it again. I still don't like it. Can you present these more flexibly? That's better. That's kind of better. Can I get a refund on thing? Can I get a refund on this ticket? Can I get a refund on... Yeah, that's a bit better. I was hoping to request a refund for my meal. I was hoping to request a refund for my hotel room. So I like it. I like these being a bit more flexible. That's a bit more useful, definitely. And how about... choose 5 and present them with 2 examples in other contexts. So you can see here that for each of these phrases now we have different contexts. Like at a retail store, can I get a refund on this item I purchased last week? At a restaurant, can I get a refund for this dish that was not prepared correctly? I think this is amazing, isn't it? It's so useful. I mean, getting examples, getting contextual examples of language for learners, and the fact you can just get it so quickly. And there might be a specific language point that you want to do that with. So before someone was talking about no sooner dumper than bumper bum. So let's ask him about that. Can you provide 5 examples in different contexts of using no sooner than For example, no sooner had I arrived home than my boss phoned me. Okay. Great. No sooner had the sun risen than the birds began to chirp. No sooner had I started my new job than I realized it wasn't for me. And it's great that he's told us here what the contexts are as well. Career-related context. No sooner had I opened the refrigerator than I remembered I needed to go grocery shopping. Household-related context. It's cool, isn't it? So that's another thing you can do with it, using it to expand your vocabulary. And for anyone who was joining me previously on the Oxford Online English stream, I spoke about morphemes. Now, I do have a prompt also for morphemes, which is really cool in English. And my prompt here is this one. I'll show you all my prompts later. At the end of the class, I'll paste all my prompts in the chat. A prompt is just something you use to tell Chat GPT to do something. So the prompt I have here is break the word X into its morphemes and explain the meaning of them suffixes and prefixes, right? So we can take any complex word that we want there. So for example, infidelities. Thank you, Julia Khatar, for that one. Infidelities. Right, and you can see this is really cool here. So it says the word infidelities can be broken down into 3 morphemes. In is a prefix which means not or opposite of. Fidelity is the root word which means faithfulness or loyalty. Ease is a suffix that forms a plural noun, indicating there is more than one instance of the noun. So the word infidelities means instances of being unfaithful or disloyal. I love it. I love it. And now you might say, okay, that's kind of cool, infidelities, but, can you give me 25 more examples of words that start with the prefix in? Lovely. Inactive, inaccurate, incomplete, inconvenient, inconsistent, inexpensive, inflexible, insecure, etc., etc. So this is sort of the way that we can develop our vocabulary by exploring with this. It's so cool. It's so useful. Riyadul Islam says it's obvious that ChatGPT is more useful than Google. Yeah, I believe so, although Google are trying to develop their own version. Daisy Lee says one disadvantage of ChatGPT is that they can't read the answer for you and you need someone to read it for you. When you say that, Daisy, do you mean there's no audio, like no voice? Because, right, so there are actually ways of doing that. People have developed APIs that give ChatGPT a voice. So you have to mess around to get it kind of happening, but there's an extension for Chrome which does it. And I'm not going to do it right now because I haven't experimented with it, but people have done it basically. So if you look around, you can find voice for it if you need it. I'm not sure that you need voice though. I don't know if that's really the way of using this tool. Like, some people might use it as someone to talk to or something. I don't think that's the way of using ChatGPT. If you want to simulate a conversation, you're probably better off using character.ai, which is something I looked at in a different video. And I think the conversations that you get on character.ai are better than ChatGPT. ChatGPT is like a strange genius that can help you with stuff, okay? It's not something that I would talk to and expect it to like respond in a particularly human way. I think character.ai does that better. The link doesn't let me come into ChatGPT. It should do. If you go to chat.openai.com and then you click try, that should give you access. Anawat says, does this mean I don't need to use online dictionaries anymore? Yes, kind of. The issue with ChatGPT is it does lie sometimes, right? It lies. So if you start asking it about stuff, sometimes it just makes things up. So you have to be careful with that. But basically, I think it is better than a dictionary because you can customize the kind of response you get. So you can say, tell me the meaning of this phrase. And then you can say, give me 10 synonyms for this phrase. Give me 15 more ways of making a polite request. And that's just so much more useful than like a dictionary, honestly. So yes, I agree. Anyway, let's go back to some other things. So we've talked about vocabulary building. Oh, I didn't mention word families, but we'll skip over that for now. So yeah, it's really good for useful phrases and morphemes and basically lots of vocabulary generation. Again, this is just talking about useful phrases. So you might think, well, these are some contexts where I might want useful phrases. Just ask ChatGPT and it'll do that for you in the way that I have shown you before. So one way that we can use ChatGPT is to give us writing feedback. So I have a writing here. This is a writing from an intermediate student. And you can see that the writing is quite simple and also has some errors. So it says, my house have many rooms, but my favorite is my bedroom. My bedroom is very big and has a lot of things. When you enter the room, you can see the big bed in front of you. The bed is very comfortable and has a blue blanket on it. On the left side of the bed, there is a small table with a lamp on it, etc., etc. So kind of an intermediate, simplish writing with some mistakes. I would like to put a few more mistakes in there, actually. Let me just put a few more mistakes in there. Right. So we have this text. We can imagine that this is like a writing that you've done. Now, again, we're not going to do the very simple thing, which is just correct this. That's not what we want, right? Getting a correction, that might be useful if you're handing it in for university, but that's not what you want. What you want is to learn. So how do we use this thing to learn, right? Well, I'll show you my prompt that I have for this. So the prompt I have for this is analyze this writing from a learner of English. Highlight the errors and explain the problem in each case. In addition, comment extensively on any strengths or particularly complex vocabulary. All right? So quite a specific prompt, and then afterwards we put the actual text. Okay, so here we can see rather than just correcting my writing, which is not that useful, ChatGPT has explained each problem that I have. So it says subject-verb agreement. My house have should be my house has because house is singular. Spelling, entree should be enter and lightning should be lamp. Okay. Verb tense agreement. The lamp be yellow should be the lamp is yellow because the sentence is in present tense. So this is much more useful than just asking it to correct your writing, isn't it? So I'll put that prompt there in the chat for you. And there's some other things we can do with the writing. We can take the same writing and we can say, you'll love this. This is the way to say it as well. Juice up the language and vocab in this writing. Explain each substitution you make. So if you want your language to be more fancy, then you get something like this. He didn't explain his substitutions, which is annoying. But he's got, my abode comprises numerous chambers, but my favourite is the one where I rest my head, my bedroom. It is an immense space, furnished with an array of items. Upon entering, your gaze is immediately drawn to the sizable bed. That's wonderful. I want him to really juice it up more though. So let's give this another go and juice up the language. Explain the additions you make and give definitions of the new juicy words that you use. Ah, there we go. So, my abode boasts several chambers, but my utmost beloved of all is my boudoir. I love it. And then explanation. Abode is a fancier word for house. Chambers is a more sophisticated term for rooms. Utmost beloved is a more eloquent way of saying favourite. So if you wanted more fancy vocabulary, that's the way you could do that. By the way, you don't have to stop there. You can iterate. So you can go, juice this up even more. Behold my resplendent abode, an edifice that features a bevy of chambers. However, my heart beats most fervently for my boudoir. Okay, let's go further. Lo and behold my magnificent abode, a towering edifice boasting a plethora of lavishly appointed chambers. But it's my boudoir, my sanctuary of bliss and indulgence, that ignites a fire within my heart. This sprawling haven is a veritable cornucopia of rare and intriguing objects d'art, relics and curiosities that entice the eye and imagination alike. Oh, and he's done the explanations as well. That's great, isn't it? Oh no, Dr. Archie's disappearing. Yeah, oh my God, it sounds like You're the King, says Up Down JK. I know, it's amazing, isn't it? So you can do that, and maybe that's what you'd like to do. And you can do the opposite as well, because to be honest, this language is fantastic, but also it's a little bit out there, and maybe you'd want to do the opposite thing. So you might want to say, rewrite this text using salt of the earth, colloquial, common vocabulary that people use regularly. Yeah, so then you get something a bit more down to earth. Check out my awesome house. It's a huge building with tons of fancy rooms, but my favourite part's my bedroom. So now it's brought it a bit back down to earth. So you can do things like that. You can do things like that are quite useful there. Daisy, that's not true. That's not true. It's an American company. But it pulls its language from everything it's read, right? So if you, for example, see it using American spelling, you can say, use British spelling in this conversation, please. There you go. So it's pretty easy to get ChatGPT to speak using British English if you want. It's very capable of doing that. In fact, it can speak French. Because it has read these texts. So again, we might take this. Is Lolly Lolly still here? Are you here, Lolly Lolly? I would like to know if this translation is a good translation of French. We've got Manuel here. I'll tell you what, Manuel. I'll ask it to do a Spanish translation, and you tell me, is this good Spanish? Are you there, Manuel? Can you take a look? What do you think? It's quite formal, isn't it? He said miren. That's quite formal, I think. Miren mi magnífica morada, una torre imponente que presume de tener una gran cantidad de habitaciones lujosas. What do you think, Manuel? Yeah, you are right, Daisy. At the end of the day, British English and American English are essentially identical. Just a few spelling differences, so not something that concerns me. No, I wouldn't worry about it. So, moving on, we want to see what else we can do with this thing, and I want to show you the other prompts I've got, if I've got more prompts. So, writing feedback. And remember, the point there was, I'm not just asking for a correction, I'm asking for feedback. Yeah, but Manuel, nobody in England would speak what it was translating from. Remember, it was like, lo and behold, my grand house, right? Like, nobody speaks like that. We juiced it up. We juiced it up. So think about it. Does it sound like juiced up Spanish? Simplify a reading. So this is a cool thing you can do. You can, if there's something difficult, a bit too difficult for you to read, you can use Chat GPT to simplify it. So here we go. I've got here Sherlock Holmes. So we get a couple of paragraphs of Sherlock Holmes. And this is the prompt that I was using for this, is specifically rewrite this text, replacing difficult words with very simple English synonyms. Try to keep the length of the text the same and ensure that the meaning is relatively preserved. The text should be easy to understand for an A1 learner of English. Now, you're probably not A1, but let's just do this and make it a because it's not very good at simplifying texts. So I want to tell it to make it really, really, really simple, basically. So if we go to the original, it says, to Sherlock Holmes, she is always the woman. I have seldom heard him mention her under any other name. Now we come down here. Sherlock Holmes always called her the woman. I hardly heard him refer to her by any other name. He thinks she is better than all other women. So, you know, we can see he has actually cut out quite a lot of words there, which is not what I wanted. But it's still very useful to take out words like pacing the room swiftly, and instead it says walking around his room, which is much easier to understand. So that can be a really fun way of changing a text to make it easy for you to read. Hello, Pallavi. Thank you very much for the feedback. That's lovely. LK, yeah, no problem. Good luck with your kids, and smash that like button. So, simplifying a reading, another excellent usage for language learners. I think I've got one more idea here. Oh no, that's it. So, bit of reflection on the kind of prompts that I went through with you today. So, there's boosting vocabulary, or we'll just call it useful phrases. Things you can get from Chat GPT. So we've got useful phrases. We've got morpheme analysis. We have writing feedback. We've got juicing up your language. Making your language, the opposite of juicing up your language, making your language more colloquial or common. And we had simplifying how do you do this? Simplifying a text. Simplifying a reading. Okay. So there's all the things that I come up with. I'll see if I can just paste all my prompts in the chat there. Oh, I can't because YouTube has limitations on what you can put in chat. Hang on. I'm going to just go through all of my prompts. Chat GPT is an artificial intelligence chatbot, Pallavi. It's very, very clever and it's incredibly useful for a language learner. So if you've just arrived, I highly recommend you go back and watch this stream from the start and take a look at the things that I spoke about, because it's a really, really incredibly useful tool. Kelly says, does ChatGPT only express formal usage if we let it simplify the text? No, not at all. I mean, it will do what you tell it to do. So you can see in my simplify prompt, I said, replace difficult words with simple English synonyms. So that's what it will do. It doesn't have to be formal. You can tell it to do simple colloquial synonyms. Just be more specific with your prompt and it will try to do what you want it to do. No problem, Wookie. It was great to have you here. Have a lovely, lovely week. Do you have I'm here for questions. If anyone's got any questions. Juicing up language is amazing, Pavia. And it's great when you're just like, you just keep saying like, juice it up even more. Like, juice it to the max. I like it. It's really fun. It's true that it ends up being quite odd, but in a very kind of fancy and flamboyant way. So one of the things I asked it actually today, because I thought, hey, you know what? Why don't I improve my vocabulary? So I actually said to it, let me just find the prompt here. I've been talking to this thing a lot today. That's it. So I come across a word, right? A word which was obduracy. This word. I'd never noticed this word before, and I didn't really know what it meant. So obduracy, it means sort of obstinate, tenacious, something like that, right? So I kind of thought, hey, I tell you what, why don't I ask ChatGPT to give me a whole load more words that are kind of rare and not used that much, but still exist in English, like obduracy. And it did. I got all this stuff. And there's some words here that, I mean, I know about half of these, and then about half I don't know. So ineffable, yeah, that's pretty common. Langorious, yes, I've heard that. I wouldn't use it though, so that's cool. And then this one, pulchritude, which means beauty or physical attractiveness. She was admired for her pulchritude and elegance. I've never heard pulchritude before. It sounds great. Mellifluous. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? Mellifluous. The mellifluous sound of my name. Sweet sounding, pleasant to the ear. So again, this is a word I'd heard, but I wouldn't use very much. So a really good way of like getting your high level, fancy kind of C2 vocabulary up there. And the way that I got it to produce that, my prompt was, I said, first of all, I said, obduracy would be considered quite a rare but fine word in English. Give me 15 more words in the same category of unique, rare and fine English words and tell me their meaning and usage. So that's how I did it. Like that. So that's my prompt for getting that kind of lovely, interesting vocabulary. Yeah, that's an interesting question, Pavia. Who would use this language? What do you say? Think of people who use this kind of language. What people would use this kind of language? It says anyone with a good command of the English language. Such words would be more common in academic writing, public speaking, literature, where precision and eloquence are valued. Some professions, such as lawyers, writers, journalists, and academics, may be inclined to use such language. However, it's important to note that the use of these words should be appropriate to the context and audience. Great. Hello there, Irina Paraskaru. I didn't realize you were there. Kamal says, I used ChatGPT for an essay about Moroccan history and mint tea. It's amazing. Are you finishing this live stream? I'll finish this live stream when it kind of dies out, Pallavi. I'm happy to be here and help you guys with any questions that you have, or just, anything really. Anything on your mind, feel free to ask me in the chat and we'll have a little talk about it. What I would like to do on Professor Rich going forward is I do want to invite some people to come on live and talk on the stream. And I want to do a bit of English work, basically a kind of live class with some of you. And I will be doing that, not next week, but at some point. Next week I'm on holiday. But at some point I want to get you on. You don't have to show your face, just audio is fine. And obviously I won't be sharing any personal details, but people will hear you speaking on the stream. So you need to be comfortable with that. Really, I want to show people sort of what it's like to have a lesson with me. Won't be perfect because the stream situation makes it a bit different. But hopefully we can do some conversation, some correction, some things like that. I'd like to be a writer and use this kind of language. I think ChatGPT is a really great tool for writers. I actually think that the job of being a journalist is going to end because of this, but I still think we'll have writers and poets. Because you can ask ChatGPT to write stories and poems, but they suck. They're really like GCSE style poems, not that good. Pavia writes a lot better. Thank you, Uptown JK. That's a really nice comment. Is there anything I can help you with your English? Oh my God, talking to you live would be difficult. Bear in mind, Pallavi, that I talk to my students all the time. I have lots of in-person and I currently have 6 online students who have one-to-one lessons with me. And then I've got 3 classes that I teach in person. This is my job. It's what I've done for 15 years. So partly you might say, oh, it would be difficult, but you understand it's my role to make it easy for you. So it's my job to make you comfortable. And also it's my job to speak in a way that allows you to communicate back. Yes, you can use ChatGPT for explanations. I'm sorry, I can't read your name because I can't read the Cyrillic alphabet. But you can use ChatGPT for that. In fact, I tell you what, I'll also use ChatGPT to, how do you say in English? Zoya. Is your name Zoya? Zoya, so you can use ChatGPT for explanations. As usual, my recommendation is to be specific. So you could just say, explain the present perfect, right? But that's a horrible prompt. And, it'll have a go and it's give some examples and it's said some common uses. But I wouldn't do that. What I would say, be as specific as you can, right? So, explain the present perfect as used in this sentence and give it an example. I've just finished my homework, so now I can relax. Give more examples of this type of usage and explain the form. Right. So whereas before we got this kind of generic explanation and it's like, oh, you can use the present perfect for talking about past experiences, describing changes. And it's like all these complicated different things. And instead here we've given it a very specific thing, which is I've just finished my homework, so now I can relax. So now he'll explain this specific one. The speaker is describing a recent past event, but emphasizing its relevance to the present moment. The form of the present perfect is have plus has plus past participle. In this sentence, the contracted form I've is short for I have, and finished is the past participle of finish. Here are some more examples of the present perfect used in a similar way. I've already seen that movie. I don't want to see it again. She's visited Europe twice this year. I really hate that. It's done it horribly wrong. Sorry, Chat GPT. You're not going to replace me as a teacher just yet. Let me try it again. Explain the present perfect using give more examples of this exact type of usage and explain the form. Let's see if I put exact, will that do it? You still haven't done it. See, he's putting in like I've already and we've finally arrived. I think it might be better if we don't mention that this is the present perfect. I think maybe stay away from calling it the present perfect. Let's just say explain the meaning of this sentence and analyze the form of the words used. Let's try that. So maybe getting away from the grammar and just going into kind of what's the meaning of this, analyze the form, and then give more examples of this, of sentences like this. Sentences very similar to this. Okay, let's try that. Yes, that's what I wanted. So I think that's more useful. The sentence I've just finished my homework, so now means that the speaker has completed their homework and no longer has obligations, blah, blah, blah. The sentence is present perfect tense, which indicates the action is finished and has just been completed. I've contraction, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, the examples are good at least. I've just cleaned the house, so now I can watch a movie. I've just finished my workout, so now I can take a shower. I've just finished my exam, so now... I think out of all of that, the most useful part are these examples at the end. So maybe that's a better way of doing it. Maybe forget about the explanation. Don't have explanations. Just say, just give it that and say, give me more examples very similar to this. He hasn't kept the same form there, though, and I kind of do want him to keep the same form. So I've just finished my homework, so now I can relax. Give me examples very similar to this, using essentially the same form. Interesting. I've finished my chores. I've done with my project. All right. Give me 15 sentences using I've just plus past participle. That's really what I wanted. And give me and contextualize the examples by extending them. Yes. That's what we want. That's what you want. That's what you want. So give me 15 sentences using, and then put some form in there and say, contextualize the examples by extending them. There. That's what you want. Do that. Forget about this explain the present perfect nonsense, right? Just take an example of some language and then break it down and get it to do that. And then look at the examples. I've just completed a challenging hike up a mountain and the view from the top was absolutely breathtaking. I've just finished writing my first novel and I'm excited to see what readers think of it. I've just bought a new car and I'm thrilled how smooth and comfortable the ride is. Great. When will your next session be? Probably in 2 weeks' time, Miss Archu. I've just seen the meme that said, hello, you is not rude in British English. Is it true? It is rude, Anawat. It is rude. It's less rude in Australian English. So that C word, in Australian English, it's not so bad. In British English, it's like the worst word you can say. The only word that's worse than the C word is the N word in British English. Okay, thank you, Pavia. Yes, I hope I'm more intelligent than ChatGPT. But I think that intelligence can be measured in different ways. And for me to produce 15 examples of I've just, that's be difficult. Might take me 10 minutes. This thing can do it in like seconds. So how do you measure intelligence, I guess? There's different kinds of intelligence, isn't there? At the end of the day, ChatGPT is a tool, but a useful tool. Yeah, so I hope that was clear, Anawat. The C word is very rude in British English. But in the Australians say it a lot more than us. It's still rude in Australia, but they say it loads. Can't trust anything on social media. Yeah. It depends who you're talking to as well. I mean, are you guys familiar with Guy Ritchie, the director? Guy Ritchie. Palaver, you don't want to know. It's a bad word, okay? Just do a search on the internet, bad words in English. So there's a director called Guy Ritchie, and he's known for like gangster films. I love him. I think he's so awesome. I love his films. There's a film that came out called The Gentleman, and Hugh Grant is amazing in that film. And there's a new film came out just the other day. It's called Operation Fortune, I think. And Hugh Grant is phenomenal in that. Really good. It's cheesy action. But in that film, they say the C word quite a bit. It's gangster language. Don't say it to someone in real life. Not good. So, any other questions? Daisy Lee says, Pallavi, you need to drink beer to build your immunity against alcohol so men won't take advantage of you when you're drunk. I don't know if that's good advice, Daisy. Maybe better advice would be don't put yourself in a situation where you're drunk and someone could take advantage of you. Because building up your immunity to alcohol, yeah, I don't know if that's the best thing to do. Be vigilant. That's my advice. Be vigilant. Okay? The end of the day, there's many ways that someone can take advantage of another person, and alcohol is only one. There are other ways, so I think just be generally vigilant, okay? Do not follow the model of society where young people go out and get absolutely hammered with no one looking after them. Surround yourself with good friends who will look after you. Don't put yourself in risky situations. Pallavi. I don't know. Is that how you say it? Pallavi? To be honest with you, Pallavi, I respect the fact that you don't drink. And I'm someone who does drink. I drink a lot. But I respect people who don't. I think there are few advantages to alcohol, honestly. Alcohol for me is something fun, but in some ways I wish that I didn't drink. Yeah, Uptown JK, people do that, don't they? Sometimes people drink and it can backfire. It can definitely backfire. It's not something I would recommend. Let me tell you, if you're someone who gets very nervous, I'm going to give you my advice for not being nervous, right? Because there's things you can do that don't involve drinking out. Because drinking alcohol is risky before an IELTS exam. That could go very badly. right? And also, you might start to rely on alcohol to relax. And that's really bad. I've had students like that. It's tough. Normally older students. So how to relax before something really important. All right. This is if you have a job interview or an exam or something like that. Okay. First of all, don't stress about not sleeping well the day before. As long as you slept well the day before, it'll be okay. So one thing people often get is they get insomnia before like a serious exam. Happens to me sometimes. It happened to me for my teaching diploma. I think partly because I had to travel to another city and it cost me a lot of money to do that. So I was really stressed because I thought, well, I can't afford to keep doing this if I fail this. So I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I didn't sleep well that night. However, I did sleep well the day before that, and that was enough. So as long as you've had some sleep in the week, it doesn't matter if you don't sleep well that night. You can still be okay. So don't stress about sleeping. That's important point number 1. Number 2, eat as healthily as possible in the days leading up to it, right? So it might seem a bit weird, again, but that means no fast food, no alcohol, okay, not too much caffeine. You can still have caffeine, but not too much. And have lots of vegetables and fruit, right? The traditional things your mother tells you, right? It might seem strange, but honestly, your stress levels get lowered when you eat healthily. So it might be annoying to eat healthily. It's not so fun. But when you have something really important, like a job interview or a really important exam, it's the best advice. Drink plenty of water, vegetables, fruit, salad, healthy eating. It's just a few days. Just a few days. You just do it a few days leading up, okay? Right. Now we're getting to the magic bit. On the day of your interview or exam, do some serious exercise about let's say 2 hours before the event. So this is like, get sweaty. Go for a run, go for a swim, and you want to work out for 45 minutes to an hour, get real sweaty, plenty of exercise. There's a lot of good reasons for this. One is your body will dump dopamine and endorphins in your system when you finish. And dopamine and endorphins will combat the feeling of stress. So the feeling of stress will subside because your body will just be full of endorphins and dopamine. Okay? And finally, if it's possible, have an energy drink in a cup or in a bottle. Sometimes, if it's a job interview, maybe you put it in a cup so it looks like a tea or it looks like water or something. Because if you're drinking sports energy drink in an interview, it might look a bit strange. But I recommend it. So no coffee in the morning, right? No energy drink during the day. You save it until you get to the interview, and then you have your bottle of Lucozade, right? What do I mean by energy drink? I'll show you. I don't mean Red Bull, not Red Bull. Okay, I'm not talking about Red Bull. That's too much. That'll send you off the wire. I mean stuff like this, like Lucozade Sport. So this combination of things really works well for me. So if you're someone who gets nervous and you have something important coming up, if you do these things, you will find yourself being a lot less nervous, right? And I'm someone, when I have like, if I have a job interview that I'm like, no problem, I don't get nervous. But if I have a job interview that's like, ooh, this could be a big step in my career, then I get nervous, right? But then if I do these things, I don't notice it. The nervousness just dissolves, right? It just dissolves with these things. So it's really, really useful. If you're, you're taking your driving test, do this. What's that, Riadul? You're saying that I have good stamina to go for 2 hours on a stream. Some people do streams for like 6 hours, although maybe not alone. Maybe they have other people talking as well. I'm gonna build up, start doing some more streams. There's a lot of people streaming out there. Some people are good, some people are not so good. And I think I have something to bring to the table that's different than other language teachers. So I would like to build up a bit more of the live streaming. And unfortunately, it does seem that Ollie on Oxford Online English is moving away from streaming a bit. He's working on other things. So I need to start building up a following here, because Oxford Online English might not be streaming that much in the future. Pallavi says, I don't speak English, I just write a lot. It's bad. It's not that bad, Pallavi. You're only 18. That's not too bad. Your English is pretty good for 18, even if you're just writing. You know, I've got students who are 30, 40, 50, and they're desperately trying to learn English. You've got lots of time. Pallavi has a question about life. Of course, I can try. I'm just a language teacher, but feel free to ask. I can try to help. Drinking a little alcohol help you mingle with friends or colleagues at work? Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I did used to rely on alcohol for that purpose, Daisy. But honestly, I don't use alcohol for that now. And I love alcohol, but I drink alone. I don't need to drink it at parties. I don't need to drink it to be around people. I think that's probably just something that happens as you get older, and probably 15 years of language teaching helped as well. But I don't find alcohol useful for social things, really. It just makes you say stuff that you regret. Thank you very much, Manuel. It was good to speak to you yesterday as well. Manuel's one of my private students at the moment. Yeah, have a lovely week, buddy, and I'll see you again soon. I'm going to start wrapping up now. I just want to see if there's some final questions. Ashley Chen says, switch yourself to the monk mode. That's kind of right, Ashley. But it is interesting that when you sort of... Yeah, Manuel commented that it's boring. It's true, it's boring. But this is advice for not getting stressed, and it works. It's only 3 days, just like 3 days, or even just 2 days, right? I did tell Ollie, by the way, Daisy. I told him that people miss him, and when's he gonna start streaming again? And he seemed quite disinterested, actually. He was just like, oh, I'm just busy at the moment. I might stream again at some point. He doesn't seem to get a kick out of streaming like I do. I don't know. It's sometimes I find it difficult to read Ollie. I don't really know. I can't, especially his writing. When he writes something, I can't tell how he feels. So I don't know. Pavia says, Riadul, I think drinking alcohol is haram for you. Actually, Pavia, that is a misconception. And again, I'm just a language teacher. I am certainly not a religious expert. But I believe, according to the Quran, drinking alcohol is only forbidden. It's forbidden for you to be intoxicated during prayer. And basically, the religious institution later decided that they wanted people not to drink at all. So they called it haram. But according to the Quran, it's only during prayer. It's just no intoxication when praying. That's the official thing in the book. Is it inappropriate to make a professor a boyfriend? Just asking. Oh, Pallavi. Yeah, funny one that, isn't it? A bit of a spicy thing for me to talk about as well. As a teacher, have to tread carefully with this question. I think in the modern world, it's generally seen as a taboo. And the reason for that is because of the so-called power difference. So the idea that the teacher or professor is someone in a position of power and who can potentially influence important factors in the lives of their students. And therefore, in that relationship, you're likely to have a power imbalance. In other words, the teacher or professor has a high amount of power and the student doesn't so much. That's the common word on it. And although it's not illegal in the UK anyway, it does tend to be something that will get you sacked if you work for an institution such as a college or university even. So if you have an extensive relationship with a student, often it will say in your contract that that's a sackable offence. Now, that is quite modern, and if you go back just 10 or 20 years, that wasn't the case. And in fact, I know some people who married their students and they have families now and, well, they're happy or whatever. I don't know. I'm not them. But I have friends who've been in those situations and they seem to be happy. So I don't know. I guess there's kind of the society perception of that. And then there's the reality of what happens with people. For the record, I've never done it. I have never had a romantic relationship with any of my students or any students at any institution where I've taught. And only once I've had a romantic relationship with a colleague, and it was a big mistake. So, yeah, I think it's best to keep that professional side and your personal life separate to some extent. See, Pallavi, I think you're getting better advice from Daisy Lee and Pavia. They obviously seem to understand that situation from a female perspective, perhaps. You can flirt with your professor to receive a high score in university, but dating them is peculiar. Oh, dear me. Interesting, says Ashley Chen. Yeah, I know. We do the spicy topics here, don't we, Ashley? Uptown JK, as a language learner, I make a lot of mistakes every time, even though I practice. I just wonder how it goes. Well, Uptown JK, there's two things to consider. One is that often mistakes are really not that important. I do realise that people do want to speak well, and therefore there is a time and a place to focus on accuracy. And obviously we do want to improve our accuracy over time. But there is no point in stressing about all the mistakes you're making, because that will negatively affect your fluency. So ultimately, it's a balance. I don't talk to my college professors. I'm afraid to talk to them, says Pallavi. I don't know what to say. They should be approachable for you, Pallavi. The thing is that professors do tend to sometimes they're not as approachable as they should be. One of my philosophies as a teacher comes from one of my inspirations, who is Adrian Underhill. Adrian Underhill, he's one of the gods of English language teaching. And he says, don't have a teacher-to-student relationship. Have a person-to-person relationship that's in the classroom. So the idea is that as much as possible, the teacher should try to avoid this situation where the teacher is here and the students are here. We want to avoid that situation because it's not very authentic, and certainly as a language teacher, it's not helpful. So we try to keep things like this as much as possible, with the teacher just a little bit up here because they are experts and they need to control the class, but ultimately we want to talk to each other like people. So my students should not be afraid to approach me and talk to me. It's important. It must be quite uncomfortable if your teacher flirts with you. How do you know your teacher's flirting with you? Do you have any advice for introverted people to develop speaking? How old are you, Ahmed? Are you quite young? If you're young, it's something you'll develop over time. I would recommend practicing speaking on your own to get the pronunciation and to get your fluency up. And drink a strong coffee, practice, maybe join a group like the Toastmasters. The Toastmasters are a group where you can practice public speaking. Like, you just got to do stuff to get out your box. I was a very shy person in my early 20s. I used to be very introverted and shy and nervous and all kinds of stuff. Now I don't care. I have pretty much zero social anxiety now. So I've really changed a lot in the last 20 years. And that's primarily from doing stuff. Just go and do it. It's a slow process. It changes over years. Don't expect things to change in a month. Is there a big difference between C1 and C2? Yeah. Massive. In general, the language levels have bigger differences the more you go, right? So like A0 to A1 is not very much. Then A1 to A2 is a bit more. And then A2 to B1 is a bit more. And then B1 to B2 is a bit more. And then B2 to C1. It's kind of like that. So C1 to C2 is the biggest gap. Because C2 is like, you have to be a master, you know? You have to have like Chat GPT level vocabulary. Are you talking about university when you say college, Pavia? College is kind of, yeah, it's sort of one way of talking about university. Yeah, it's a big change going to university. It's a big difference. How are we doing? Are we wrapping up? Have you got any other questions for me? Lovely to see people chatting in the chat together, by the way. I really like that. That sense of community is quite important, I think, for building some sort of an online presence. I wish that we had a Discord server or something where you guys could talk together. I always wondered why Oxford Online English didn't develop something like that. A forum or something. Today's topic is definitely not flirting, Julia. Can you imagine if I did an English class on flirt? Maybe I should. Do you want to know how to flirt in English? Sorry, personal. What sun sign are you? Sun sign? You mean star sign? I'm Aquarius. And my moon sign is the scorpion thing, Scorpio. So I'm star sign Aquarius, moon sign Scorpio. And apparently I have a lot of water in my star sign. I'm told. Lots of water. Too much water. You know, let me cover this subject because you guys are talking about it a lot. So it's a bit weird, right? But it's a tricky thing to say because I think most of the people in the chat right now are ladies. So I think you'll probably have more to say about this than me. But in my experience, ladies are attracted to confidence and status. Forgive me if you don't agree. Ladies are often attracted to confidence and status. And it just so happens that a teacher or a professor is someone who often seems to be confident. And, well, teacher has some status, especially in the classroom, right? The teacher has the highest status in the classroom. So you already have these qualities which are quite attractive to a lot of females, speaking generally and making a massive stereotype. So that's probably why you get that situation. But this can also apply to managers at work. It can apply to leaders, you know. It can apply to presenters on TV. Riadul has to go. Yep, absolutely wonderful. I love handsome teachers. Oh, well, you don't like me then. Aquariuses are geniuses. Well, I try. Rich, not me. I don't date teachers. I'm not talking about dating teachers, and I think it's a bad idea to date teachers, probably. So I'm definitely not talking about that, Daisy, but I'm just talking about attraction. You don't have to date someone if you feel attraction for them, do you? I mean, if I did have to do that, I'd be in big trouble. You know, there's a famous quote from sort of a love expert who says, attraction is not a choice. And that is definitely true. You don't always like people that you're attracted to, even. Attraction is not a choice. It's a biological feeling. And I'm just talking about attraction to explain sort of the conversations that you guys were having about that. Right, everybody, I really appreciate you being here today. I really, really appreciate the support. Thank you so much. It's really important to me. And I very much respect your input, your opinions, and the conversations that you're having. I do not come to you as an expert. I come to you as a facilitator. That is my way of teaching. I facilitate learning, but I am by no means the expert who tells you how it is. I'm very much humbled to be presented with your opinions and perspectives. And I do feel that I myself learn many things by being in these situations. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Do have a lovely weekend. Have a lovely week. And it will probably be 2 weeks before I see you guys again, because I'm going on holiday next weekend. I'm celebrating a Druidic festival, and maybe I'll talk about it. So experiment with Chat GPT. Post your comments down below. Let me know how things go with that. And, well, thank you very much. And as always, I will catch you next time. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. notes for this lesson will be available for download. I'll sort that out right now. I'll post that download link in the chat if you want the PDF. Go outside, get some sun. If it's sunny where you are today. Catch you later.